The genesis of today's webinar came about a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting at my desk here at On One, and I was going through older catalogs of mine from like 2009 and 2010, just because I wanted to see how, if anything, changed with what I've learned about photography over the past, several years. And when I went back, I realized just how awful I personally think. I would ask myself, what was I thinking when I processed these images? So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a webinar where I go over some images that have already been processed, I shared them out on my blog years ago, and start over. I haven't looked at these images since then. So here is an example of a final product that I posted back in 2009. The date here is March. I took this on March 11th, 2009. So 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. This was taken on a boardwalk in Staten Island. My family, I'm from Brooklyn. Brooklyn is right here in the background over there. My parents have since moved to Staten Island, and they live near this beach, which I take advantage of very often whenever I go visit, because it has a really nice view of the Verrazano Bridge, which connects Brooklyn and Staten Island. And it's just a lot of fun, especially in the winter when no one is on the boardwalk. So I looked at this and I thought, man, I really went to town here. This was an HDR tone mapped image. You can see some of the things here. I over sharpened this to no end. You can see that there's almost like a clipping in the sharpening here. You just almost lose detail. There's also a lot of blown out details up here. It's just, in my opinion, a lot of haloing. It's not a very good shot. You can see the haloing over here as well. So I thought, all right, let's see what we can do. So I went back and I took the original brackets here. So you can see this was well before I had any sort of, what camera did I shoot this with? It was with the 5D Mark II. Okay. I got the 5D Mark II in 2008 when it was first released. But I didn't have a promote control. I was just using in-camera bracketing. So you can see here's one exposure, another exposure, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to take these images and we're going to tone map them just like we normally would. I'm going to go to File, Plug in Extras, and select Photomatics. I'm not going to do any ghosting here. Actually, you know what I will do? I will do ghosting or ghost reduction because the clouds are moving really fast. So here's what we're going to do. It's going to take these images over to Photomatics. And, we're not sponsoring Photomatics. We don't have a partnership with them. I don't have anything to do with them. I just like their product, which is why I use it. That's just kind of how it goes. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to make a selection, just a rough selection around the clouds. So you can see I'm drawing around the clouds here. I'm going to go up here. Not really even paying that much attention. I just want to make a selection around here. Now, what I'm going to do is right-click inside this selection here, and I'm going to select Mark Selection as Ghosted Area, and that's going to give me the solid color around the sky. Now I'm going to hit Preview Deghosting to see what it does. And so it's sampled from one of the brackets here. It looks good. I actually like that. It blends in pretty nicely. So I'm just going to hit OK. What's going to happen now is Photomatics will start to tone map the image, taking into consideration the original exposure here. And when we're done, we're going to have the tone mapping image to start working on. Okay, so let's fit this to screen so we have a full screen view. And now you can see that the clouds are actually nice and sharp. A few dust spots, not a problem. Now, there's some things that we're going to do first. First thing I'm going to do is drop the luminosity down. And I'm also going to drop the overall gamma or brightness down so that we start getting just a nice kind of even curve here. I'm going to drop the detail contrast down because it's getting a bit too dark here. What I'm looking for is just a nice evenly exposed image. And so we're looking good. I'm happy with what I'm seeing so far. Might make it a bit brighter. Might drop the white point down a bit. And so here, good clean exposure. Let's hit Save and Re-import. And then here's our new image to work with. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to actually just go to, before I do anything, I'm going to go to the develop module. Hank is asking what happened to choosing which picture to take info from when we were deghosting. The default picture that Photomatix chose at that point was good, so I didn't need to. All right, so here, the only reason I went to Lightroom first is because I want to go to the spot healing brush, or the spot healing tool, and just get rid of some of these spots here because I had a dirty sensor. I'm going to get rid of this little guy right there. Let me resample that. And overall, I think the sky is looking pretty good for now. I'm happy with this. So now what I'm going to do is send this over to the suite. So File, Plugin Extras, and let's stylize. Now, part of this webinar is to illustrate how my tone mapping and HDR processing has evolved, but also how the stylization component has evolved. So I'm going to go ahead here to Effects. And there's Don's asking, when do I handle chromatic aberration? So chromatic aberration is usually found on high contrast edges. So like, let me pan over here to the right. You typically see chromatic aberration on these kinds of high contrast edges, and it looks like a fringing, kind of like a color fringing. For me, Don, it depends on the image. Basically, if or the intent of the image. A lot of times when I stylize my images, the effects that I apply to the image themselves essentially change the overall look of the shot, so that you almost don't even see the chromatic aberration. When I was doing commercial stuff, if I was shooting into a bright, let's say I was shooting indoors into a bright window, usually I'd get some CA around the inner edge of that window, and that I would actually probably go into Photoshop and reduce that chromatic aberration. It's a great question though, Don. All right, so what will I do here? Well, the first thing that I want to do here is blend a black and white layer with this. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to go to the effect options down here, and it's under the advanced tab in Perfect Effects. These are the building blocks of Perfect Effects. So every single effect that you see in every single category was built using a combination of these building blocks. So I'm going to start with black and white. Oh, George, you want the cursor. So George is asking for the cursor to be larger. I can do that. I think that's under the accessibility options and cursor size. There we go. All right, there you go, George. Hopefully that'll help. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to build the I'm going to build this black and white here. I'm going to boost some of the contrast, and I'm going to adjust the color filter to see if there's a particular range where I like the exposure to be. Let me see what's in blue. No, I don't like that. Go over here to yellow and green. That's good. All right, so now with that, what I'm also going to do is add a little bit of a sepia toner. A tiny bit, about maybe 20%. And now I'm going to take the blending options button right over here. I'm going to drop the blending mode, and I'm going to do multiply, soft light, hard light. I actually like multiply. I'm going to bring that down to 0, and then bring it up a bit. And what that's doing is it's bringing out a little bit more contrast in the image. But it still has the sepia undertone. So I'm going to hit Add here. And now we're going to carry on. I'm going to go ahead to the Movie Looks category. And I'm going to go to an effect here called Havana. Now, Havana is a very, very strong effect. So again, don't worry about the initial 100% here. We're going to bring it down to 0. Just bring it out a bit. I'm going to go back to the blending options. And again, I use blending options a lot. Just because I like sometimes you get these unforeseen results. So something like soft light looks really nice. Okay. I'm going to keep adding on here. Next thing I'm going to do is try out Thermopylae. And I want Thermopylae for the boardwalk. So bring the strength of Thermopylae down to 0, bring it up a bit, and then I'm going to take my masking brush and invert the masking brush. So that hides thermopylae, puts my brush into paint-in mode, and now I can go ahead and just paint in thermopylae. And I'm going to go quickly here. I don't want to spend too much time with masking, but I'm going to go here. I'm just going to get the whole chair. I don't really care. If I had more time, I would probably mask around the chair, but I don't want to spend too much time here. A lot of times what I'll do is, you see this show mask drop down? If you go to overlay, it does a nice job of showing you if you've missed any areas in your mask. So I usually bring that up when I'm masking specific areas on my image. Go here. Okay. Turn the mask off, and then let's just mask in these little wooden beams on the chair. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of getting these wooden beams so that it's a bit consistent. Okay. Manny's asking a great question. Manny's asking if I ever do these edits on the fly or do I experiment beforehand. In all honesty, Manny, this is all on the fly. This is just, I kind of know what effects do what. I did not practice any of this. The only thing I did beforehand was I went through my catalogs and searched for images that I thought would work well. So that's really all there is to it, for me at least. All right, continuing onward, because we're not done yet. What I want to do is I want to bring out the sky a bit more. So for that, I'm going to go over to the landscape category, and I'll probably do something like Magic Sunset. Not Magic Sunset. I actually think Magic Ocean might work nicely here. And I'm only looking for the sky here. It doesn't do much for me overall. I might check out Kryptonite to see. I'm looking for something to bring more detail out in the sky. That's not... Oh, you know what I realized? I realized that I didn't hit add. That was a major faux pas. Thank you very much, Craig. I'm like, why aren't there any changes being made to the sky? All right, there we go. Let's bring that strength back down. Bring it up a bit. Okay, now let's hit add. That was a problem. Now I'm going to go ahead back to the landscape category. I was wondering why I didn't see any effect there. Let's go to Magic Ocean. I like what it's doing to the sky here. So I'm going to take my masking bug. I'm going to put it in the image, and I'm going to just essentially put it in the foreground because I don't want it to affect the foreground. And I'm also going to bring the feather to 0. So you can see that hard line. All I need to do is just bring that down below the horizon, and I know that I have a nice kind of clean mask. There we go. So it's only affecting that up there. To finish things off, I'm going to go to the glow category, probably do something like a deep forest glow. One of my favorite effects. Bring that down to 0, bring it up a bit, and then see if there's a better blending option other than normal. Even though I like normal. Go to multiply, soft light, hard light. I like hard light. Okay. Now I'm going to hit apply. I love rich glow too, Hank. All right, so let's see the before and the after. I'm going to hit Command P on a Mac or Control P on a PC. That's what we started with. Here's what we ended with, but we're not done yet. We're not done. I'm going to also go ahead here to, let me hit add. I'm going to go to the, actually I'm not going to add the vignette here. I'm going to go straight from here over to focal point. So I'm just going to click on focus. What's going to happen is Perfect Effects will automatically start rendering the effects that I have here. And then create a layer in the background so you don't have to worry about it. And then bring me into focal point. So it's nice that you can jump from module to module without having to worry about anything. Thanks, Andrew. Good seeing you, man. Andrew Kavanaugh's here. He runs a fantastic Photoshop page on Facebook, that a Photoshop and Lightroom page that I'm a big fan of, very, very big fan of. So let's go here, reset everything. And so again, focus bug. Little guy, little critter in focal point. I'm going to put the bug, which is round by default. You can tell it's round because the body is a circle. We're going to change that shape from round to planar up here in the top right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bug and make it horizontal. And the way you do that is you drag these little legs. The legs have solid colored circles. I'm going to put it down here in the foreground, and then I'm going to tilt the bug. To tilt the bug, the cursor has to be inside the body of the bug. So the body is the square now. The cursor's inside. Press and hold the Option key. And again, you press and hold. Don't just press it. Press and hold the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC. Drag forward. Or backwards. You can go up or down. But I'm going to go up. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm just looking to get as much of the top of that, of the seat of the bench as in focus as possible. Now, you can see the bottom here is also out of focus. We need to fix that. To do that, I'm going to take the masking or the focus brush. I'm going to make sure that my focus brush is set to paint focus at 100%. And let me drop down the feather. It's a bit too big of a feather. And I'm just going to do one swoop along the bottom here. And that brings focus to the entire bottom. So that's good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing focus to this area here. So I'm going to go ahead and start brushing focus on the chair. And you can see how you see how it's kind of painstaking, but it's worth it. So I'm just kind of bringing focus to these areas here. And again, this is where I can kiss the people at Wacom because it makes my life so much easier to do this rather than using a mouse. Go here, go along the top, and just kind of hover along this top right here. And by doing that, what we're doing is we're giving the image a really nice kind of three-dimensional feel. Let me bring up the mask a little bit. That's looking good. And the way you bring up the mask is this Show Mask button under the focus brush. All right, so now what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to go ahead and drop that blur amount down because it's a bit too blurry. So I'm going to bring it down to about 15%. And I'm also going to bring up the optical quality, which adds a little bit more detail. Next thing I'm going to do is drop the brightness of that background and boost the contrast of it, so it gives me better separation. I'm going to make sure that, I'm going to continue with my mask here and just make sure that I get good lines. Those edges are what you really want to concentrate on when you're masking, because the edges are what's going to give you the three-dimensional feel, because you're going to see that transition from in focus to out of focus. All right, now I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to hit save, and now we're going to finish things up in Lightroom. All right, so go to the grid view. Here is my edited image. Let's go to the develop module. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by getting my correct white and black points. To do that, you want to press and hold the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC, and we're working on these 4 sliders in Lightroom: the highlight, the shadows, white point, black point. So again, press and hold the Option key or the Alt key and start dragging. So here you can see that I haven't reached the full highlight point yet, so I'm going to drag to the right until I start to see dots. So you see those dots there? When I start to see them, I'm going to back off a bit until they go away. I'm going to repeat the process with the shadows. So with the shadows here, I'm looking pretty good. I don't really need to bring out any shadow detail. The white point, same thing. Bring it until you start to see dots. And then the black point is right there. So now what I'm going to do is adjust the exposure. It's a bit too bright. I'm going to bring it, that's too dark. I'm going to bring it up a bit. I'm going to bring out the contrast. I'm going to bring out clarity. And now what I'm going to do is add a vignette. So I'm going to go down here to the vignettes, and I'm going to add a little bit of a post-crop vignette. I'm going to increase the feather. The feather is the transition from the dark edge to the normal. I'm going to bring that out because I want more of a natural transition. And then the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the crop tool, and I'm going to crop it in a bit because there's too much unnecessary foreground. So I'm going to bring it to about there. And there we go. That's the shot. Now, you can see, and I still have a few dust spots to fix, and I would also probably get rid of that. That's really distracting. I don't think let's see how well Lightroom does here. I'm just going to do this whole thing here. And then you see how it doesn't look right? If you press the H key, you can see where it's sourcing from. So this is the original selection. This is where it's sourcing. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to move it to somewhere, and I'm going to try to align it as best as possible. Something around there. And you see, it's just not doing as good of a job there. So in this situation, I'm going to delete it, and I would go to Photoshop and fix it, because I think the content aware works really well. The reason why I want to get rid of it is because it's very distracting. It's this very dark spot here. So watch, let's go to the grid view, and let's compare 2009 to 2012. Same exact image. So I didn't do anything. I mean, the cropping is different, but the same exact brackets were used. And just to show you how much you can, evolve as a photographer. To me, I love being able to show this because it's really important. You can see the differences. Jonathan doesn't hate 2009, and that's fine. I'm not saying it's a bad image. What I'm saying, for me, I guess it doesn't suit my taste anymore. I remember this is when I first started with HDR and really get it going nuts with stylization, and I think I went overboard. I find this image to be much more pleasing. But totally agree with you, not bad. Now, Hank, you're saying crop after vignette. Yeah, the reason why, Hank, is because the vignette, let me turn off the lights out. If you see here, this is a post-crop vignette. So it's going to adjust automatically based on the crop. That was a problem, I think, going from Lightroom 2 to Lightroom 3 was in Lightroom 2, if you did a vignette and you cropped, the vignette would not be even. But with this new post-crop vignette, it actually will vignette at the edges no matter what. Ron's asking if I spend less time in Photoshop. Yeah, Ron, I hardly spend any time in Photoshop. The only time I go into Photoshop is when I want to, if I need to do a complex warp or if I need to do a content aware. Can you start with a smart object? You can, John, if you're in Photoshop. I could have sent it to Photoshop, saved it as a smart object, and then I would, the Perfect Photo Suite product supports smart objects. So I could have done that if I wanted to. All right, let's move on to the next image here. Same principle for image number 2. So, and I think most of you will agree, you know, I love it. You guys have been so kind to me, and you've given me a lot of compliments over the years with my images. So here's an image that oof, man, I look at this and I'm like, how in the world did I think this was good? Oh, Peter, you're my sunglow too. This was what I thought was passable. I don't know. This is not. Look, this is not passable. Let's critique this. You've got your God rays here. That's great, but you see these dark bands in between the clouds. That's just really, that's bad tone mapping, and that's bad stylization. It's overly sharp, and I remember doing this. I remember I always added tons of clarity and sharpness. Clarity is great, but eventually you start breaking the image down if you add too much clarity. So overall, actually, tone mapping is not terrible because these are high contrast edges, and there's not much haloing, so that's good. But man, oh man, was this awful. This is Manhattan. This is the island of Manhattan. That's the Brooklyn Bridge. That's the Manhattan Bridge. This is a very famous area to shoot from. This is called Dumbo, which stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. So it's a nice little park right over here. You can actually kind of see it right above where the Mickey Mouse hand is. Both Sam and Nick have. They say Sam is saying that this is very surreal, and Nick's saying it's very illustrative. And you're right, it is. But I think we can. I don't know. I don't like it. I'm going to go ahead and let's tone map this really quickly. Again, 5 brackets, File, Plugin Extras, Photomatics. I don't need any ghost reduction here because it wasn't moving. Nothing was moving. And so we'll go ahead and start doing the tone mapping. Yes, Spencer. I don't know if at this point I would consider myself an HDR noob. I think at this point, I started tone mapping like in 2008. So yeah, about a year into this, I was still pretty green. I've come a long way, but it took a lot of failure, as you can see here. So let's go ahead here. Let's get a nice, clean, tone-mapped image. You know what one of the things was that I did? You just kind of reminded me of it, Spencer. My problem was a lot of times I stylized in tone mapping, and that's something that I'm sure I've brought up a million times. What I would do is I'd bring up the gamma, and then I'd also bring up the luminosity and the detail contrast, and I would start stylizing in here. You know, I'd bring down the lighting adjustments and, you know, get a look. That is the wrong, you could start to see the dark bands over here. So what I want to do is I'm going to set the faults here. I'm going to reset everything. I'll bring the strength up to 100 here. Bring the white point down. Bring the black point down. Bring a little bit of the luminosity out. Bring some gamma out. Let's see what else. How's my tone curve doing? Good there. Drop the detail contrast. I'm making it a little bit brighter than normal. Oops. All right, so that's looking pretty good right there. Nice, clean. Why is it jumping like that? All right. Actually, I want it a little bit brighter. All right. Nice, clean image. Good exposure. Everything looks clean. Let's go ahead and save this. Oh, Doug, great point. Too. What Doug just said was software and hardware have come a long way as well. That's a great point. And what I want to say to that is, even just the versions of Photomatics that I used, that was Photomatics like 2. And now we're at, I think, 3 or 4. I can't remember what we're on. But you're absolutely right. The algorithm that they use to build the tone map has come a tremendously long way. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, 4.2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go quickly right here in Photomatics. I'm not Photomatics, in Lightroom. I'm going to go back to the clone tool, and I'm going to fix some things. I want to get rid of that boat. Let's get rid of these tiny little spots here. There's a dust spot in the sky. Some more dust spots. So I'll do that right now just to get rid of it. Overall, I'm okay with everything else. The next thing I'm going to do is rotate. I want to straighten the horizon out, because clearly I must have been drunk when I was shooting this. That's a really crooked horizon. All right, that's looking good right there. And let's send it over to Stylize. So I'm going to go to File, Plugin Extras, Perfect Photo Suite, and we're going to repeat this process here. Go to Perfect Effects. Michael hit the nail on the head. Michael said, you look like you're making the image pretty flat before you stylize. That's absolutely 100% correct. Tone mapping is not an area to stylize, in my opinion. Tone mapping is to get a clean baseline image that's flat. When you develop, depending on the type of film that you develop, you're usually trying to start flat, and then you dodge and burn accordingly. I find the same principle with tone mapping. When you're tone mapping, you want a flat image. That's not the place to make the image look cool. So, Michael, I think that was a great call. All right, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to something like Arkham, and I'm going to see what Arkham does here. Way too strong, but I like where I'm going at, so I'm going to drop the strength down to 0 and just bring it a tiny bit. I like the kind of foundation that it's giving me here. So I'm going to hit Add. Next thing I'm going to do is go to something like maybe Grunge Goddess, because I'm going for a Gotham kind of look. Now, the sky's going to get ruined, in my opinion. And so what I'm going to do is bring it down to 0, bring it up, and I'm looking for the city right now. I'm going to take the masking brush, Actually, I'll take the bug. I'll just put the bug over here. I'm going to remove that effect from the sky. Let me bring that feather to 0 so we get that hard edge. Put it against the horizon. And then I'm going to take my masking bug. Make sure I'm set to paint in. And restore it in the buildings that the bug removed. So because the bug went flat across here, I need to bring back that information. And you can see if I bring up the mask, you see what I'm doing is I'm essentially just bringing back this information. Otherwise, we'd have an uneven mask. I'm not going to get too close to the edge here because it won't even be very, very discernible. All right, so we're getting there. I might actually bring up the, let's see what kind of blending modes we have. I don't know if it's going to look very good, but we can try. Ooh, I like soft light. I like hard light better. So I'm going to start bringing the strength up a bit more. I really like what it did there. All right, hit add. Where'd it go? White soft, no, there we go. Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to take the brush and just do a few quick strokes across the foreground. Not the end of the world, but I don't like that it didn't work there. Okay, so I like what it did to the sky here. I'm going to hit add, and we're going to just finish things up really. Now I'm going to add a whole entire glow to the entire image. So I'm going to go to Deep Forest. Oh, I didn't want Deep Forest. I'm sorry. I actually want the Dreamland. Bring that down to 0. Bring it up just a bit. And I'm actually really happy with this shot. If you want to go further, like continue stylizing, something like actually, if you go to Movie Looks, Blue Dawn would probably work really well here. Bring it down to 0. Bring it up, and then use a blending mode. Something like soft light does a really nice job. So now we're going to hit apply, and we'll return back to Lightroom. Gerald's asking if there are any shortcut keys for the blending options. Someone asked me that yesterday, actually. There are no shortcut keys, and I actually submitted that as a feature request. All right, so I'm just waiting for the last of the effects to apply here. And now I'm going to hit save to return back to... I was going for kind of a cinematic look here. I'm going to go to the Develop module. Repeat the process of hitting the Option key for the highlights and the rest of the layers here. Shadows, bring out some of those shadow details. White point, get my correct white point, and the black point's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to bring out the exposure just a bit. It's a bit too hot, so I'm going to drop some of the highlights down. I'm also going to drop the lights down just a tiny bit from under the tone curve. Bring up the contrast, and bring up the clarity and the contrast. Now it's getting a bit too saturated up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this graduated filter. I'm going to select saturation. I'm going to bring the saturation down a bit and then drop it down the sky. With that done, I'm going to bring up the exposure in the sky. I'm going to bring back a little bit of that saturation. It's getting a bit too gray. I'm going to increase the contrast just so that the sky looks a lot cooler over there. And the last thing that I would do here, I'm not sure if I even want a vignette. Let me see what a vignette will look like. A vignette looks kind of cool. And so there you go. This is kind of, let's compare the two images. This one versus this one. So quite a difference. Much cleaner. Definitely more natural looking. You know, I definitely had more, I think, of a surreal point here. You don't see the God rays as much pronounced over here in this shot, but there were things I could have done to bring it out. But I do prefer what I've got here. let's go ahead and one last image before we head off. This image I never actually worked on. There's no before, or there's no original image, but I wanted to show you something that I think would work fun here. And this is an important example. This is Coney Island's Astroland Park in Brooklyn. This is the Cyclone. It's, I think, one of the oldest operating wooden roller coasters. It's kind of, for the roller coaster aficionados, this is like a very, very important place. Now, the reason why I wanted to show this was because I remember I never did anything with this back in the day because it was a boring blue sky. I couldn't stand it. So let's send this over straight to the suite, and I'm going to show you how we can have some fun with it. So here, I'm going to go straight to Perfect Mask. And we're going to remove this. I'm going to show you a really easy way to remove the blue sky. And this is great for any time you have an image where there's just a boring blue sky. I'm going to start, you see over here the drop dropper? You won't see that if you're in the basic mode of Perfect Mask. So you want to make sure you're in the advanced mode over here and select the drop dropper. I'm going to click on a few different parts of blue, and you can see how they're adding to the color set. So I'm just trying to get a good representation of the different shades of blue. And when I'm done, I'm going to go to the, you see the magic brush? It looks like a little snowflake. All I'm going to do is double click on that button. So I'm going to double click, and automatically Perfect Mask will go through and mask out every instance of that color. Now I'm going to hit apply. And now I have my mask. So now I need a new sky. So if I go over to File, Browse Backgrounds, I have actually a folder of skies that come with Perfect Photo Suite. These are all included if you've got the suite. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to find a sky, something like this one here, Skies 20. I'm going to double click and I'm going to hit Add. Okay, so you can see now we have the sky on its own layer. I'm going to put that sky below, and now we've got a good baseline, but we're not done. The first thing I'm going to do is, with the sky layer highlighted, I'm going to click on this Fill button. And what the Fill button does is it gives me a Color Fill Layer dialog box. I'm going to go down and I'm going to select the Lighten preset, and I'm going to bring that to 0, just like we do in Perfect Effects. And I want to brighten the sky just a bit, and I'll show you why. All right, so now we have the sky blended with the foreground very, very realistically. What I want to do is I actually want that sky to be an afterthought. So first I'm going to merge these two layers together. So I'm going to hit merge so the color fill layer merges with the sky. And now with the sky layer selected, not the top layer, but the sky layer, I'm going to go to focal point. This is going to be kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to reset everything. So you see the bug. Now you see, because we had the sky layer selected, focal point's only working on the sky. Notice how the roller coaster is not getting blurred. I don't want there to be any area that's in focus of the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opacity right here. I'm going to bring that to 0. And that effectively blurs the whole entire background. The focus bug is now ignored. I'm going to bring that amount down just enough. Then I'm going to bring up the optical quality, which gives a little bit more detail in the blur. I'm going to drop the brightness of the sky and boost the contrast. So now it's looking really awesome. I'm going to hit apply. And so now the sky is blurred. But I'm not done yet because I actually don't want this to be in color. What I want to do is I want to take this, I want to combine all the visible layers onto a new layer without merging. To do that, I'm going to go to the layer menu item and select new layer from composite. And what that does is it takes all visible layers and creates a fourth layer. So I can actually hide these layers, I can delete them if I don't want them, but I now have a new working layer. I'm going to go to Perfect Effects. And just like before, I'm going to build my own black and white layer. I'm going to go to black and white. I'm going to bring up the contrast. And I'm going to add a little bit of that sepia tone to give it a vintage look. And the reason why I added the clouds was because I wanted to have a little bit more drama to the image. So you can see here what we're able to do. I'm going to continue on by hitting add. I'm going to go to glow, and I'm going to go to something probably like deep forest. Bring the strength slider down, just bring it up a bit. Hit add, and now to bring out more texture out of the cyclone and the sky, and the sign, I'm going to go to color and tone, select tonal contrast. I'm going to bring out the shadow detail a bit, and then just like before, take the masking brush, bring up the inspector, hit invert, which hides that tonal contrast. I'm going to start painting it in, just where I want it. So on the track, on the sign. I'm not really being too careful. Again, I don't want to waste too much time with masking. Let's bring up the mask. So I'm going to go to Show Mask Overlay. Just make sure that I get some things here. Okay, that's looking cool. I'm going to change from Paint In to Paint Out. I don't want the sky to be sharpened. I'm going to go back to Paint In and mask the flag. And so here we go. That's our image right there. Let's hit apply. Oh, did I hit? I didn't hit apply. And now we're going to hit save. And then in Lightroom, I'm going to go to the Develop module, repeat the process of getting my tone. So here the highlights need to be dropped. Shadows, bring out some of those shadow details. White point is good. Black point, bring out the black point a bit. We're clipping it a bit. Drop the exposure. I'm going to bring out some clarity overall, bring out a lot of contrast. And that's looking pretty cool to me compared to this one. I mean, look at that. And then look at this. All with the suite, didn't do anything, nothing special. It's just kind of giving you new ideas. Daryl's asking, do you need to do any work on the edges after you use the masking technique on the sky? No, because it was actually a nice clean edge. That's the cool thing about blue skies, is that, I mean, look at, here, let's zoom in. Look at the edges. The edges are exactly this. I'm just going back and forth quickly so your eyes can adjust. Look at all the edges. None of the edges are being lost. And that's because it was a clean, you see the blue? It's a nice clean edge. This is very common for blue skies. So it's a nice, easy way to get rid of the blue sky. So that's it. Have you ever tried to colorize a black and white photo? I have not, Ernie. It's a good question. So with that, that's basically what I want to show you. I actually like this series. Maybe you guys like it too, but maybe we'll continue to do this kind of series. I'll go through. Trust me, I've got a ton of images that could stand to be reused. I like that. Donald's saying that the cyclone is merging into the background. I like that. So what Donald's recommending is add some contrast. So I'm going to go ahead, and I agree with you. I'm going to go to the contrast. Might bring a little bit of exposure on top of that and a little bit of clarity. And then just to let the cyclone stand out, the word here, I'm going to bring that out. Very good call, man. 100% agree. See? Everyone can use a little help.